Yeah.
Recording is on.
But if you look at most people now, they're normally on an electronic device, and they don't even think. Right? They just everything is very. It's just soundbite-ish and fragmented, so that people's attention span is just hopping around, and there's very superficial. So that what we've lost is this depth, and so we've lost the quality, and now we're just saturated by quantity. So it's kind of like junk food. In terms of information.
Yeah, and that's a really scary thing too, because it's just another one of those things where like humans are outsourcing their capabilities to machines, and if you outsource thinking, you're doomed. You know, you're doomed if you do that.
Well, we're mechanizing the knowledge economy now, so that all these bots and things like that are really commoditizing and mechanizing the last thing, and that's basically our thought. So that we've done it to the food industry, we've done it to the medical industry, we've done it to war. We've mechanized everything, and just everything's cookie cutter. And now the final thing is to do that to our thoughts. So a bot will come along, and you'll have a conversation with a bot, and think, can you think of anything more useless than talking to a bot without realizing it?
Oh God!
It's the end of the road, because it's. I lament that we've got here, but what I lament more is how many people think it's okay. They don't see what I think people on this sub see, and that's that this is not a place where you want to be. There's nothing good about it. People don't see the dystopia. It's like Schellenberg, that guy who was, Zion Lights went and joined Schellenberg in the nuclear industry. That guy, the shill for the nuclear industry, and he can't see the dystopia. It's very funny how his blind spot that he thinks that you're staring right at the dystopia. To him, it looks like a utopia, and you think, how can you get these two so muddled up? But I meet people all the time that do think, kind of Steven Pinkerish. I had a Steven Pinker conversation today about people that really think, Hans Gosling and Steven Pinker is like things are getting better and better. And I'm like, what planet are you on that things are getting better and better?
Yeah, I can't stand Steven Pinker. Oh God.
But a lot of people think we're moving into utopia. So I think that's the big divide now, and that's what I've been saying for a bit, is that the final battle lines are kind of post-human and tech. It's basically the Luddites against the post-humans is the final battle line, I think, where it all comes down. But I think that humans. I'm definitely on Team Human, and I think the humans will win for a number of reasons. But by the time everything becomes mechanized, and by the time our lives become mechanized, they're not worth living.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're talking about not seeing the dystopia, like whenever I see people sitting on their phones, it makes me think of like the whole virtual system with the internet and social media and stuff. It's sort of like an inverted Dorian Gray image, where the graphics on the computers are getting all awesome and beautiful and all this stuff, and then our planet's dying, we're obese, we're dying of heart disease and cancer. The government is, getting a tighter and tighter grip on our liberties. So it's like that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, this is what's happened in the Soviet Union. It's why I say that, frames, that we think in terms of frames, or alien cortex thinks in terms of frames, is terribly dangerous, because what it allows us to do is to do exactly what Steven Pinker does, and it allows us to pick a part and mistake it for the whole. So, for example, civilization is wonderful according to the vast majority of people. It's replaced our religion of choice is now science and technical civilization. But we've been trained to go and see, like, take for example, Michelangelo's David. If you see a documentary on civilization, you'll see somewhere they'll come up with Michelangelo's David, and then they say, oh, the wonders of civilization. And you say, well, if you look at civilization, it's not beautiful at all. It's ugly as all hell. If you have to get one Michelangelo statue of David, it's just a piece of freaking marble. And if you zoom out basically from Google Earth and say, how many lives had to be destroyed? How many of that was paid with Borgia money? The Borgia is basically the mafia. So basically, how many people did they have to screw over to get the money to actually make this statue that was just there to aggrandize them and allow them to screw over more people? But this is the iconic image for how wonderful. Put a frame around Michelangelo's David, and then this is the wonders of civilization. And you say, well, if you look at the vast majority of the world, civilization is ugly as all hell. It's basically urban slums. There's very little beauty in what humans do. But you wouldn't say so, because everybody's talking about, they cherry pick and frame everything and all the wonderful things of art and all this music and all these things, and say, but for those, the vast majority of things that people do are ugly. Just look out the window, you'll see vast arrays of ugliness. You don't see Michelangelo's David and stuff like that, but people don't see it. They just tune that out, and when they think of civilization, they have all these stock frames that they run. And so if you look at nature, then there's beauty everywhere. Nature doesn't struggle to do beauty. If you look at clouds and birds and the sea and the patterns, and there's beauty fucking everywhere. If you go and look at a city, it's boring as all fuck. So nobody says that. Here in Greece, you can see all these people going around all these temples and stuff, and all these, well, this is the cradle of civilization here in Greece. So they go around and they're looking at all these marble statues, and you can see what they're doing. They've been taught that culture is fabulous and civilization is fabulous. So they come to Greece to see the culture with a big K. And then basically, somewhere along the line, they know that they're having a shit time. They're looking at temple after temple after. They're all the fucking same. They're fucking ugly, actually. But no one wants to say it. They're looking at it going, look at this wonder. It's 3,000 years old. It's the same as the fucking last one, and it's ugly. And then nobody, look at the beauty of this. Like, fuck off. Look at that bird. Look at the sky above. That's beauty. It's not the fucking temple. The temple is just like a kind of a blot on the landscape. But everybody knows it, and nobody will say it. So the tourists go around, and you see them looking. Their faces get longer and longer. They're getting more and more bored seeing another fucking Aphrodite. And they can't say what they all know. And it's like, this is shit. No one, I would love to do the Monty Python video where somebody just breaks down in the middle of it, and David says, this is shit. Why doesn't anybody say it? Everybody comes and appreciates it and goes, oh, and so stand up and say what it is. It's shit. Everybody's bored. No one wants this shit.
It might be another one of those instances where it's like the inability or the uncomfortable feelings of dealing with complexity, because, like, if we're in this way of life, our hands are blood red. We don't want to talk about that blood,
Yeah, it's for like a token little example that you can frame that justifies endless mechanized warfare and environmental destruction and social destruction. And like, don't look at that. Just look at the fucking Michelangelo's David. And it's like, how do people get away with it? It's just terrible to me. I think that people should spend more time just filming ugliness and just saying, look, this is the majority of the world. If you've traveled around the world, you'll see that the vast majority is a cesspit. It's basically, and Donald Trump says all these shithole countries, they're all shithole countries. America's a shithole country. You just don't want to look at it. But if you go down the street in Los Angeles, you'll see basically dumpsters, and half of them will be overflowing, and it's like, it's a shithole. the dead cats all over the road. But no, we don't look at that. We look at the Hollywood sign. And so people should say, just have a look at what we're doing. It's all a fraud. But nobody wants to say that. But I'm interested in like where beauty and stuff comes from, and it comes from the well, there are lots of things for aesthetics, but one of the things is symmetries and the algorithms that are embedded in nature. And so, but what we've done in our monoculture is there are very few algorithms. So we have a paucity of we have an excess of spectacle and a paucity of content. So if you have a look at the algorithm that just when you're online, it's just how can we shove shit in front of you to keep your eyeballs on the screen long enough so we can sell you something. It's a very simple algorithm that's dominating our 8 hours a day in some cases. So yeah, but nature is exploring all the time variations on themes, and it's nature is really doing art. We're not. There's not much art that we do. Yeah.
Hugh, I'm just thinking about what you were saying just then. That I mean, if I don't know if I quite got this right, but I mean, if energy is kind of becoming more chaotic, and just second law of thermodynamics, I guess, just going from a more ordered state to a less ordered state. But I was just thinking of the fact that doesn't stop energy concentrating in certain places to produce a lot of order in a localized space. As I was just trying to think of beauty that way, that beauty is just like this little concentration of energy and create and order. It can't be done everywhere. You sort of there's just, you can only just do it as a pinpoint kind of thing amidst a sea of mess, if you like. I don't know. Does that lead you anywhere?
So we as human beings, that's true, but it's not true of nature, because nature has some kind of structure that we obviously don't understand, but I would guess it's fractal. So the material of the universe is fractal, so it has an infinite supply of complexity and order. So I said in one of the Darwin videos that I thoroughly believe that Boltzmann in particular led us up the garden path, and one of the icons of physics is the second law of thermodynamics. It's almost certainly wrong. And in Boltzmann's time, people told him it was wrong because he was thinking purely of diffusion. So what he and physicists since him have done is they've ignored the forces of attraction. So there are lots of electrostatic and gravitational forces of attraction. There's not only dissipation. So Boltzmann is quite wrong. Is you can just put vesicles in fatty vesicles in salt water, and they will self-organize into protocells. So it's like that kind of self-organization is going on under the principle of least action. The thing I'm just doing in the video now, the next Darwin video is about filters. And one of the things I'm going to propose is that the reason why we have symmetries, so like symmetries of face, is nothing to do with Darwinianism or sexual selection. It's got to do with focal points, and those focal points are basically what they call Schelling points. They're basically natural points where two entities trying to communicate to each other actually fall quite naturally. So in other words, Schelling came up with this idea because he's had his students in college. He said to them, as part of game theory, he said, well, if I say to you, okay, the whole class has to meet tomorrow in New York. And then no other information, no time, no specific place. He found that they all would meet quite happily. And the reason was they all would select Grand Central Station 12 noon, just because they just guessed that's what other people would do. So those things are called Schelling points, or what I call focal points. And so those focal points are really indications of algorithms. What makes our faces symmetrical is because it's very easy to signal that there is some algorithm there, and so in other words, some growth algorithm, particularly things like phi between here and here. The phi and symmetry, bilateral symmetries and things are signaling to a mate that here is an algorithm. It is not random noise. So there's an infinite supply of those symmetries in mathematical algorithms, and that's why they're so ubiquitous. I think that's why there's bilateral symmetry in nature. It's got nothing to do with Darwinist theory of, well, that's the most economical, or that's the better design, because there's so few forms of symmetry, and mathematically you could have a lot more than is expressed in nature. The bilateral symmetry is kind of very common. And so it's clearly not got something to do with fitness and survival. It's got to do with signaling. And so the signaling of pattern is to say that here is not random noise, here is pattern. And those patterns are everywhere in nature. So Boltzmann must have been wrong, because they actually increase over time because of what I'm saying in the theory is that there's feedback, there's focal points, and they're filters. And so once you do that, you have elementary computers, not elementary computers, fantastic computers. And so nature is algorithmic, and it's doing computing. And those algorithms are what makes it beautiful. Now have a look at what we do in our society. It's boring as all fuck, because the alien cortex only has one algorithm. Everything's geometric. Everything's fucking, binary and two-dimensional. Everything's fucking black and white. It's a horrid, fucking boring, shitty world. Look outside your window at New York. It's just fucking rectangle after rectangle after rectangle. It's gray, black, white. It's basically, it's a very fucked up, low density algorithm world. So, and boring as all hell. But people won't admit that. They keep on thinking that we're getting more sophisticated. But actually our alien cortex is trying to simplify things and distill them down and take the complexity out. A large part of what we've been talking about earlier about vaccines and stuff like that is the people are why the regimes the doctors are under is because the system's trying to simplify everything. And it's trying to simplify everything at one level. So basically it's at one zoom level, it's trying to make everything coherent. And so what nature does is it works at all levels. So it's fractal because it's scale free. It's basically you can have beauty and organization at this level that's basically repeated this level and carries on at this level. Our society has this level. It's two-dimensional and it's unimodal, and then basically so that you're not getting much depth in it, and it's ugly as all hell. So yeah, that's the reason why we getting to this dystopia, because we're trying to make things predictable, synchronous, and then they become very flat and boring and dystopian. Now, what
I'm just wondering, just okay,
one,
sorry.
So the reason why the focal points, Schelling points, work in nature, they're kind of like Lagrange points, is why would you get these laws coming out? And the thing comes out again and again, and it's Maupertuis's principle of least action. If you have a look at two people signaling, if I say give the minimum amount of signaling to pass some information to you, you want a lot more because you want specificity. So you want a lot of detail, but I give the minimum amount of speech. So the correlation between me as a transmitter and the listener as a receiver, basically they reach an equilibrium that's kind of Pareto distribution, and say, why? What is it that Zipf's law, it comes out again in nature and language, and so often say, what is it? And it's basically, Emily Noether figured it out, and it's basically a principle of least effort. It's a principle of least action. So if you get multiple actors working for least effort, then everything naturally comes out in these algorithmic and beautiful ways that are self-similar and scale-free. They have layers, and the layers all the way down basically have this kind of complexity built in, not just one layer. Now, if you have the doctors and stuff at a hospital, they basically, because our alien cortex can only see unidimensionally and often in a Cartesian plot that's basically doing plots, then it is doing metrics for very narrow metrics. It's kind of like what Blair tried to do in the government, is basically have a very small number of metrics to say this is what a good doctor is. It does this, 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 check the box, look at the graph, and that's very, very shallow. But the reason is because then it's simplified and predictable and quantifiable. So that effort is all for our alien cortex to be in control. And the net result is you get these dystopias where the doctors they can't fudge the lines. They can't, they can't be creative, and they can't be innovative, because basically it wrecks the system. But if you just take this layer off, the alien cortex layer off, and you don't have management anymore, then everybody will optimize naturally, because they are trying to do the least effort. But we don't want the least effort. We want everybody to get off their ass and make industrial civilization and say, no, we're going to come in stuck. Because we can't reach equilibrium. We can only reach a crash. The equilibrium we're going to reach with our civilization is a big crash. So that's that Australian economist guy that was in that video. He said it in so many words. He's a very funny guy because he gets it and doesn't get it. You know the guy Reid, that Australian economist guy? So yeah, I can't remember his first name, David Reid or something, Paul Reid, something. But anyway, the guy says economists get it wrong because they keep on talking about equilibrium. And there's no such thing as equilibrium economics. Hooray! He's the first economist that gets it. What he said was very interesting. He said, look, if we had equilibrium economics, we would all be chimps in a tree. That's the only way you can get equilibrium with nature. Hooray! He got there. Then he can't stay there. He says, but we have to have civilization. Why? He's saying basically because it means that we have to have a disequilibrium. So he thinks you can have a disequilibrium forever. Say, no, you've just said equilibrium, unlike your pals, is us living like chimps. So he's saying, like, we don't want to live like chimps. Say, why? We want to live in disequilibrium. Okay, but then that's going to end. It's going to end in a crash. And he can't see that. So he thinks you can have disequilibrium forever. You say, well, that's your alien cortex talking bullshit. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that this desire for specificity keeps us on that horizontal level, and we're not, we kind of lose
level. It's fundamentally
two-dimensional level.
So, yeah, the world is infinitely dimensional, but our alien cortex is two-dimensional. It's binary.
Can I just bring in another thing, which is art an attempt to access that vertical dimension of the to get away from that?
Yeah, you see, the way I mean, there are lots of different types of art and stuff. Like Ramachandran will say, well, it's supernormal stimuli and stuff like that. All of them are true, but I think the best way to look at art is to look at it as our right brains talking to our left brains. And so, and the reason I say that because art is only 30,000 years old. So you've got to go back and say, why did we start doing art 30,000 years ago? And it's clearly the development of our alien cortex. So our alien cortex is like a newcomer, and then our older brain is trying to talk to it. So the alien cortex has language. The right brain hemisphere doesn't have, or the older brain layers, the other four layers, they don't have language. They have aesthetics, they have feeling. They're trying to express talking feeling to logic in a lot of way. lot of ways. And so by the time that you can see that this is true because of like Ian McGilchrist's talking about the divided brain, but by the time you get to the 20th century where the alien cortex goes all out, it's basically the 20th century is like the alien cortex's century. It starts off with Pete Mondrian and the Cubists, and what they're saying is they're holding up a mirror. It's their right brain holding up a mirror to the alien cortex saying, you are two-dimensional. Even Marcel Marceau does, in a box impression, in a glass box. And then Americans think this is the stupidest thing known to man because Marcel Marceau is like, he's just always a, mime in a box. He's saying like, the mime is telling you that you putting them in a box. Basically saying, this is your alien cortex, it's putting me in a box. And basically, it's the right brain talking to the left brain, and then, of course, the left brain is too dumb to see what it's doing. So it's endlessly fascinating for the left brain in your alien cortex to see this. But what the left brain could never get art because the other layers are too many dimensions. There are too many dimensions in terms of color and feeling, and too many parameters. And so. But
yeah,
it's mainly the dialogue between the two, yeah.
I was thinking about that video you put up with Alan Watts where he was talking about looking at one of these early Cubist paintings with some other people while they'd taken LSD, and they felt that they could see in the one painting, they felt that they could see the whole history of art expressed, all the different schools of art expressed in one painting. And so they had their trip was kind of giving them access to a deeper way of looking at things. It wasn't just the surface of what they were looking at.
That screensaver of yours, that's Kandinsky or what is it, right? That screensaver of yours?
No, that was Kandinsky. No, this I was trying to find the actual picture that Alan Watts was talking about. He mentioned that particular painting in another talk, and he gives enough information to actually find the picture. But in that talk, he didn't give enough.
I don't mean Alan Watts' picture. I was just referring back to that one that you have as a screensaver.
Oh, the Kandinsky's Composition 8, it's called.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was curious because it's got the geometric business, which is the alien cortex.
Yes.
But then to one side, it's got the phosphine sort of visual purple or circle, so it seemed to be interesting.
Yeah, but it's a mirror. It's basically the right wing is showing the alien cortex itself in the mirror. So it has like musical instruments and it has black and white and basically everything you would associate with the alien cortex. It's holding a mirror up to it. And saying, yeah, this is you, here you are. And of course, the alien cortex is kind of narcissistic. So it looks at itself in that art and goes, I don't know why this is doing something to me. It's like, it's easy to explain because you're saying it, all these elements of an alien cortex. It's just narcissistic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know when I first saw that painting, I just was just like, wow. The second I saw it, I thought, this is just, it was just doing everything inside my head all at once, and I couldn't leave it alone. But it actually wasn't until I'd spoken to you that I got more of a deeper understanding of what was going on there. It was just this sort of magic of geometrical stuff, but I was missing the other side of it.
But like Jung realized and Freud and that our right brains are doing the same thing when we dream. So that's why the paintings, often like the surreal paintings, have that dreamlike quality. It's in a way, Jung is right, that our right brain is trying to talk to our left brain. It's trying to compensate. It's trying to warn the left brain. And so that, now we don't give any credit to dreams, but they used to think of them as the gold standard. If you look in the Bible, they just say, how do you know that? I saw it in a dream. Okay, good enough for me. You might as well have found it at CERN for those guys. And we think dreams are completely invalid. but they're not, because they talking to left brain and often warning it and talking it down, and we've lost that connection. Now the left brain is running rampant with global industrial civilization, and the right brain doesn't even know how to talk to it anymore. It's kind of a complete divorce.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, perhaps in another discussion. The discussion about consciousness was this question of how to talk to the different levels of your consciousness or the different levels of your brain. You know, we're very conditioned to this completely literal, factual, definite, clear sort of mental legalese. And, you know, if you want to, I don't know how to put it, it's like the reverse of interpreting your dreams. If you want to go the other way, and instead of having your parts of your brain presenting you with a dream to interpret, how would you reverse the process and communicate back to those other levels of your brain? Because, like, for instance, years ago when I was looking into different kinds of meditation, and one of the things that was popular at the time was positive affirmations. And I felt somehow wary of these. And when you look at it, you could be repeating, you could be sitting there, you know, gazing at your navel, repeating over and over something like, you know, I want to be wealthy, or I want to be healthy, or something like that. And after I looked at it, and I thought, yeah, but your subconscious mind is taking that literally. And if you're sending your subconscious mind a message that says, I want to be healthy, then the logical conclusion that it is going to come to is that you are not healthy, because if you have to be unhealthy in order to want to be healthy. So the very first thing that's going to be created for you is unhealthiness. And you're thinking you're doing yourself this marvelous trick. So I want to be healthy, I want to be healthy, and I'm going to manifest really, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm really going to hammer this message into my brain. Meanwhile, the little child's very literal interpretation, which is probably the one that your subconscious mind is taking, is just thinking, oh yeah, I'm just so unhealthy that I really want to be healthy. And see, you know, I'm just using that as an example of.
Okay, so you, as always, you open up a big area. So okay, the first thing to say is your older brain layers are smarter. Think of them as smarter. They're actually the source. So they're not like a little child. In the alien cortex is more like a little child. So what your alien cortex is doing most of the time is suppressing all the other layers. It's basically trying to get salience out of too much information. The older brain layers have vast amounts of information that has to be whittled down by inhibition, or each layer is inhibiting the lower layer. So that inhibition is then what happens when you say dream or do positive affirmation. It's saying, like, if you let the other four layers speak, when they're not inhibited, they will show you what you're suppressing. They'll show your alien cortex what it's suppressing. So if it stops inhibiting, or just restrains itself from inhibiting the rest, then that's the kind of affirmation. But you see, what these guys are getting wrong is we're so alien cortex based that we have all these things like the secret and stuff, and we affirm the alien cortex as boss, and it's going to tell the rest of the brain what to do. Whereas the rest of the brain is smarter, and the real intelligence is to get your alien cortex to shut up and listen to the other layers. So, you know, it's in our culture, we say listen to your heart and things like that. But yeah, it's quite the other way round.
You know that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to say it wasn't so much that I was thinking of the subconscious as being a childlike intelligence. It's just that you had to speak to it in a very literal way. you couldn't use any kind of metaphor or sarcasm or irony, because the impression I have is it will only read, I don't know how to put it, just a very genuine statement. You can't do all these little tricks that the alien cortex can read. You sort of have to give it quite straight language, otherwise you're just going to get you're going to be misinterpreted. It's going to misinterpret. Yeah, sorry, I'll keep quiet for a minute. I kind of lost it there.
Oh, all I was going to say is that this sounds like it's leading up nicely to talking about art and realization.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure if you guys want to do that right now. Maybe another time. I'm not sure what your schedule's.
I'm happy to talk forever, but yeah, it is leading up to that. Yeah. So, what do people think?
Oh, I'm down. I just want to go get more coffee, but I'll be good.
Well, should we leave it for the next one? Maybe we should, and pick it up there. But it is a very good subject for what's what art is, and especially in terms of enlightenment.
So you want to try discussing art next time, or
yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's good. All right then.
And also, ourselves as a work of art. There's this. A lot of people on the road to enlightenment are thinking in terms of themselves as a work of art, and then they're going to perfect themselves or complete themselves or something as if it's an art project. And enlightenment also is an art project, which is makyo. It's a misstep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's pick it up then next one.
Yeah.
Well, to what you said about the Makyo, I want to say is it's not about trying to get enlightenment with art. I think it's just seeing where the road goes. Just seeing where the road goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And letting go. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was cute.
All right.
That's good.
Thanks, Hugh. Thanks, everybody else. I think Sophie's gone to bake a cake.
Yeah, the kids came.
Kids came.
Yeah.
Kids came. Yeah.
You all have a good holiday. Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
It's not known.
Not known in Australia. Whenever Americans say like, "Hey, don't you have Thanksgiving in England?" Say, "Yeah, we do. It's the 4th of July."
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right. Bye. Okay.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.